One thing that almost everyone can agree on is that it's virtually impossible to come up with a singular definition to classify a genre of music. You'd be right to compare a musical genre to a specific technique of a different art form. That's going to change drastically depending on who's shooting it, who's producing it, the time of day, who else is around, how the person is feeling. And the genre of alternative/indie is the exact same way. If we're using the literal definition, it just means not mainstream, like not the top 40 hits. Obviously, a downside with a definition like that, though, is that if an artist who is alternative/indie ends up becoming popular, are they no longer alternative or indie anymore? Even if they continue making the exact same style of music? Are they now just reduced to the hated conglomerate term of pop music? If I'm going to be completely transparent with you, I really don't care about the literal definitions. Those are only for the charts. The only reason why I even brought up this exposition is because we need to get past the 30-second mark, because there's some trigger warnings that I need to say. Since we're talking about music, and specifically a genre of music that's known for being very raw and emotional, I have trigger warnings I'm just going to say right now at the top for the entire video instead of trying to categorize each one as we go along. So trigger warning, because we're going to be talking about topics that involve mental health issues, eating disorders, sexual assault, sexual harassment, self-harm, domestic abuse, homophobia, transphobia, and worst of all, real human emotions. Now with that out of the way, let's talk about this new wave of alternative/indie artists. I'm looking specifically at those that started becoming popular after 2017 and can attribute some of their success or some of their virality to apps such as TikTok. However, I will take some time to mention specific older artists whose style, lyricism, songwriting, all of that helped inspire this new wave that we're seeing now. If you're specifically interested in what I think some of the big changes happening in the world were that inspired this genre outside of just the musical industry itself, I did make a video last year. It was called Zillennials Are Changing the World. And in that video, I talked about a lot of the unique experiences and societal changes that people who were born between 1996 and 2004 have gone through. And a lot of topics I discussed in there will be casually mentioned throughout this video. I was a pretty big lit nerd all through growing up, whether that was actual English class, theater, quiz bowl, all of that. And one thing that is emphasized time and time again, especially in American literature, is that every new era is a direct response and often rebuttal against the previous era. For example, naturalism is a literary movement that began in the late 19th century that's very similar to literary realism, but it was a rejection to romanticism. So while the romantics valued imagination, emotion, and freedom, naturalists focused on detachment, scientific objectivism, social commentary, determinism. And in the digital age that we live in now, that happens faster than ever, and you can track it so easily. In the online culture, specifically on YouTube, we just barely survived an era of flaunting, of clout, of fake luxury. In general, there was things like house tours turning into mansion tours, turning into multi-mansion tours. We had the rise of the Kardashians online. We had the likes of Dan Bilzerian. And then, specifically in music, we had Rice Gum, Tana Mojo, the Paul Brothers. We had the Roast Yourself Challenge. All of that stuff that was really, at the end of the day, just about stealing from Black culture with the rapping tendencies and then just using it instead of a method of expression to display emotions, complex ideas, great storytelling. It's just a way to say that you live in a house with like 8 floors. Before COVID as well, but also partially because of COVID, that bubble of how rich the rich are started to pop. And people start realizing that they would never be that rich. They would never gain that level of notoriety. And so they start to reject it. And instead, because they couldn't go big, they decide to focus on the very small. What little intimate details of their life makes them special, makes them happy, makes them unique? How is a normal person supposed to fit into a world that is reeling from a 6-second attention span? Are we all allowed to be main characters? And because of all these complex emotions, this genre of music has a very Dear Diary feel to it, as opposed to a conglomerate making a big hit because it will sell records. And because of all these complex emotions, this musical genre feels very much like diary entries, as opposed to carefully crafted and manufactured songs designed to be earworms and radio hits. I mentioned I want to talk about some elders in this musical community. So these people, I won't be specifically talking about their music in this video, but it's very obvious that their influence is heavily present in this new wave that we're seeing. Pardon me while I read off some iconic names such as Taylor Swift, Alicia Cara, Eden, Cavetown, Mitski, Melanie Martinez, Halsey, MGMT, The Neighborhood, Marina, Lana Del Rey, Lorde, and Adele. Apologies for anyone that I missed, I couldn't possibly keep track of them all, but I did do my best to pick out some of the highlights. So now that you have a rough idea of what I'm defining in this video as new wave, alternative / indie music, I feel like it would be very easy to understand some of the interesting aspects that this genre brings. I'm putting this first because this is very important. This genre is incredibly inclusive for the LGBTQ+ community. Most likely because a lot of the artists in this genre are members of the community themselves. That is not to say that it's perfect. There are some groups that are a part of the community but are actively hurting the community. And there are people whose music would be in this genre who do not identify as part of the community themselves, but are actively either donating or protesting or speaking out or raising awareness in some way that promotes and helps the LGBTQ+ community. I've talked enough. Let's start playing some music. First, let's say a prayer to the two gods. This video doesn't completely get demonetized and copyright stricken and copyright claimed and all those things. I'm just trying to share my love of music. I'm not trying to hurt anyone. I am taking no money away from the conglomerates, trust me. Amen. Obviously, I could only include so many artists. Sorry your fave isn't relevant. Make your own video. I am obviously going to talk about the music that I have an emotional connection to. Right before I start playing the music, another interesting aspect is the soft or happy tones combined with incredibly dark lyrics. As a casual listener, you might be vibing and bopping to a catchy song and then realize that the lyrics are talking about crippling mental illness, about trying every day to find some sort of ounce of relief. They're talking about living in a constant state of fear and panic. If you remember those Jerry memes from Rick and Morty about him listening to rap music on his way to his 9 to 5, the first song example is Tidal by Noah Khan, where he talks about homesickness, depression, and the general feeling of being lost in success.
I fell into a pattern where nothing would matter if I didn't care. To be so close to a coastline, to know that in my life I'll never be there.
Another is Sad Forever by Love, where he talks about wanting a cure for his depression, but not really knowing how to take the first steps.
I don't wanna be sad forever. I don't wanna be sad no more. I don't wanna wake up and wonder, what the hell am I doing this for? I don't wanna be medicated. I don't wanna go through that war. I don't wanna be sad. I don't wanna be sad. I don't wanna be sad anymore.
And then we have songs like Prom Queen from Beach Bunny, where she talks about body issues, eating disorders, and the overarching feeling of will I ever be pretty enough.
Shut up, count your calories. I never look good in mom jeans. Wish I was like you, blue-eyed blondie, perfect body.
A slightly darker example is I Eat Boys from Chloe Mariando, where she talks about dealing with the past trauma of being sexually harassed or abused.
So don't look at me like that, eyes on the pavement. Now your legs are shaking, hands off, kid, or you wake up in my basement, and all the feds will have to break in.
We have Serotonin from Girl in Red, where she talks about a crippling sense of depression and bipolar disorder.
I get intrusive thoughts like cutting my hands off, like jumping in front of a bus, like how do I make the stop when it feels like my therapist hates me? Please don't let me go crazy. Put me in a field with daisies, might not work, but I'll take a maybe.
And we have I Wanna Be a Boy from Addison Grace, where they talk about their gender dysphoria, especially when it relates to wanting to be in love with someone or wanting someone to love you.
Cause I've grown sick of staring hours in the mirror. Golden cheekbones, hoping your face could appear. I'll break and then my spine if it make you say I'm not so unfair.
As I mentioned before, before, this genre and TikTok are pretty intertwined, so we have to talk about sometimes where a random song blows up years after it was originally made because it was discovered on TikTok. There really isn't a better example of this phenomenon than Line Without a Hook by Ricky Montgomery, so we're talking about him because I have to. Positives of him, he is an alternative to Panic at the Disco. It's kind of like Sprite versus 7-Up. Like, they aren't the same, but one can do for the other.
I can feel all my bones coming back and I'm craving motion. Mama never really learns how to live by herself. It's a curse and it's growing. You're a pond and I'm an ocean. Oh.
There, I talked about Ricky. I even found a natural way to bring it up. So you guys are satisfied now and you can't be mad. Because what do you want me to say about him? He is stuck in 2016. Did you get the joke? No, you didn't, because there's no Ricky fans. There's no Ricky fans here, there's no Ricky fans anywhere. I know it doesn't change anything from your experience, but the clip that I pulled was from the remake of the song that he did with MXM Tune, because that really helped my listening experience and made the song more relevant. Now, all the fans of Ricky are going to point out that it'd be really hard for me to talk about him without talking about the Honey Sticks. And you're about 35% right. I'm actually going to talk about the Honey Sticks right now. Did you enjoy it? Another technique that this genre uses really well is extended metaphors. Obviously, this isn't exclusive to this genre, but it's really complemented by the diary entry type of writing. We have Nice Pup from Chloe Moriando, which I will not talk about now because we're going to be playing an excerpt from it later. But it's basically about her comparing her relationship with whoever to a master-dog relationship and how she feels neglected. However, we are going to play 2 Week Notice from Leanna Firestone, which honestly, I'm not going to explain anything. Just listen.
I think that being in love with me felt like a job to you. Not something you really wanted, just something you had to do. So you complete your tasks, you do your chores, take out the trash and sweep the floors. And a job well done is kind of fulfilling, but nothing feels as good as going home.
It was so hard picking out what excerpt I was going to use for this because that song is flawless, like through and through. And we're doubling up on this Leanna Firestone fanfare because I also want to play you guys Gambling Addiction. And you might think that I'm riding her dick, and that's very true because me and her are mutuals and have been for years, and she sent me a gift package when she released her latest album, so suck it. Again, sorry your famous irrelevant.
I've got a gambling addiction, but I'm bad at bluffing and making predictions. So love is a lottery where I always lose.
Last part of the interesting aspects is ultra specificity that leads to relatability and empathy. I think if I have to explain the songs, it kind of defeats the point, so I'm just going to start with starting with Wish You Were Sober from Conan Gray.
19, but you act 25 now. Ain't sweet, but you talk pretty proud. Wow. Ripped jeans in a cup that you just down. Take me, but the music ain't too loud. Trade dates, but you don't even know her. Save me till the party is over. Kiss me in the seat of your Rover. Sweet, but I wish you were sober.
And our other example is Karaoke by Beach Bunny.
We make our way from the boulevard to the bar. You serenade to the radio in your high school car. And your eyes change with the green of your outfit. So you tried on my blue winter jacket.
Okay, so we've gotten our history lesson. We know some of the people, we know the musical style, we know the composition, we know some interesting aspects. What does the music talk about? I know that's why you are here, that's why I'm here. That's why I'm here, is to talk about what this music talks about. That's why people go from a casual fan of an artist to a stan of an artist. And obviously, again, this is a genre, so there's multiple different things we could talk about, but there are some prominent themes that you can find from a lot of different artists in this genre. So let's get into them. The first common theme is desperation, longing for a lover. And I can't believe that sentence just came out of my mouth. Usually this is in the form of you just wanting them to notice that you exist, or you're begging them to come back. First example is Footnote by Conan Gray, where he is quite literally begging this person to come back after they have repeatedly told him that they don't want to be in a relationship with him. Classic.
Tense conversation, you like someone else. I say if I waited, could that maybe help? You told me that patience won't change how you felt for me.
Then we have Did You Come by Girl in Red, where she aggressively confronts someone who cheated on their situationship, kind of broke some sort of spoken rule, unspoken rule, whatever. It's confrontational.
Did you listen to her heartbeat like you did with me? Was it more than sex, pure physicality? Don't bother giving me any more bad apologies.
Now here's the part where I can justify the thumbnail. We have Happier by Olivia Rodrigo, which is about trying to move on from a previous relationship, but it's still fresh. It's a new wound. It still hurts a bit.
And I thought my heart was detached from all the sunlight of our past. But she's so sweet, she's so pretty. Does she mean?
And this one, Miss Me by Love, he is so embarrassed about how desperate and simpy and sad he sounds that he has not released this on any album. You can only find, it's a demo, first of all, not even a fully released song, that you can only find if you're specifically searching, like digging through his discography. And that's almost even more touching in a way.
You could break my heart and I'll still come back to you. You could change your mind and I'll still wait here for you.
Wow, that song, it was just so emotional and pure that I actually launched a week into the future and got changed into a semi-less pretentious outfit, but with mom glasses instead. And my gorgeous Flying Dutchman has now been replaced with a wine glass full of black cherry Truly with fresh limes in it. And also, as I was flying through the multiverse, I had time to see that the audio that this microphone was picking up is actually worse than the audio on my camera currently. So we're gonna move that out of the way, we're gonna fix some settings, come back in the next video, hopefully that'll be improved. But yeah, on the bright side, you get to see more of my face now. Thankfully, one thing I didn't forget as I was wrinkling through time is my obsessive need to suck Leanna Firestone's dick. We're going to be listening to another song of hers. It's called The Rapture. It's literally just the full song. It's a small song. The song's only like a minute long. I could play all of it and it'd be like perfect. But it's just realizing that you like missed your chance with someone because they're like too good for you, not in like a condescending way, but like in your opinion they're too good for you. Just listen.
You were the rapture. You came and went and left me behind, and I've been waiting on a second coming, but I realized you rarely give first chances, let alone second tries, and salvation was never made for me. I've been praying to false gods my whole life. Religion and alcoholism run in my family, but I'm pretty sure all that's gonna fix this is time.
Like, how do you hear that and not start sobbing? Just as someone who grew up in a very conservative Christian household, like my dad was Catholic, my mom was Southern Baptist. Thankfully, we moved out of both of those and became much more Protestant Lutheran, but still very old Reformed Lutheran. God, like religion and alcoholism, like that hit. Like I heard that line, I was like, oh my goodness. And straight from the Bible Belt too. Leanna Firestone's from Tennessee, straight from the Bible Belt. Anyways, we couldn't have a section like this without, of course, mentioning the iconic Heather by Conan Gray. I feel like if you're in this age demographic and you don't immediately know who Heather is to you, like what girl or guy, I guess, you think of during this song, you actually might not be part of this generation. Because I know exactly. The first time I ever heard that song on the album, I knew immediately who Heather was. And I think this might be the most popular or the most like mainstream successful song in this entire video, which is just, I mean, it really sells the point. This is the essence of this genre, of the alternative / indie genre. This encapsulates such a wide range of emotion. Like I could give a full like 45-minute video just dissecting this song alone. It's literally poetry. And the basic concept of it is so simple. You're in love with one person, but they have their eyes on someone else.
But I watch your eyes as she walks by. What a sight for sore eyes, brighter than the blue sky. She's got you mesmerized while I die.
funny thing, I don't have written anywhere in the script anything about me sucking Leanne Firestone's dick. I wasn't actively consciously counting how many times I put each artist. I was just like collecting songs in general that I felt fit the different categories that I wanted to talk about. I have another Leanne Firestone song called 1111s, and it's basically just like doing small little things like, oh, if I do this, and if I do this, and if I do this, then they'll like me.
I drove an hour and a half to go to a mall I knew had a fountain. And I fished every coin I had out of my car, and one by one I tossed them all in.
And with that, we come to a close for the first emotion / topic that this genre talks about, the desperation / longing for a lover, and we can move on to the second. This next section, it's hard to come up with just like a singular word or phrase for it, but it's them purposely acting childlike to display complex emotions. It's very Melanie Martinez, but not as dark. So it feels a little bit light, a little bit bubbly, a little bit cliche on purpose. The first song that we're going to be playing is Nice Pup by Chloe Moriando. That's right, it took us a week. It literally took a trip through parallel universes, but we got back to that song. And it's basically just comparing the relationship to the same relationship that a dog would have with its owner.
And I swear my bark is much worse than my bite. But I'm close to clearing my teeth, 'cause you've left me outside for weeks, and I'm tired of sleeping in the rain all night. And I'll still curl up at your feet and try to give you everything you need, and I'll be a nice pup if that's how you want me.
Do you get the idea now? Like childlike, like purposely, like extended metaphors a little bit. Like you get it. And now that you get it, Leanne Firestone. It's a very puppy love song. It's very fresh, like teenage crush. Like I'd say like 15, 16-ish. In fact, it's really funny. I was listening to this song in the car with my roommate Sabrina on our way back from the Stray Kids concert. And like this was just like a song in like a playlist I have just in general about just like a ton of different songs. And she heard this song. This was her first time ever hearing it, and she was like, "That's kind of silly that she would say that." I was like, "Yeah, that's kind of the point. This is supposed to be a very dumb, stupid. Like I'm 15, I'm 16, and I've just met the love of my life. He has the same homeroom as me. That's the idea of this." So, Strawberry Mentos by Leanne Firestone.
You started eating my favorite candy. You buy a pack in every store you're in. Stocking up on strawberry Mentos. So when you kiss me, it'll taste like them.
And then next we have Canada by Love. And that's featuring Alicia Cara. That's right, I knew that a week ago when I told you guys like the list of like some elders in this community. I know that you were on board with most of them, but you kind of like squinched your nose. You kind of like twitched a little bit when I said Alicia Cara. You're like, she doesn't really fit the vibe. She's in the song. The song is the vibe. She fits the vibe. Listen, be taught, enjoy. Oh, before that, this song is literally about just like you're with your partner and you're like, let's just leave. Let's just move somewhere else. Let's just go.
What if we move to Canada and buy some things we don't need? Bring your mother's dog, your paintbrush, and some candy. And when they talk about those people who up and leave, that could be us. That could be you and me.
And honestly, with how the world is right now, Canada might not be a bad option. I also think it's funny because Alicia Cara is from Canada, so she would be just moving back home. I'm not even sure if she even permanently lives in the United States. It might just literally be moving to a different town in her home country as it is. I'm not sure about Wolf. Okay, we had this other thing here. It's Would You Be So Kind by Dodie. I think this is like right on the board. I think this came out in 2017. It might have come out before. Sorry, I'm not perfectly fitting my timeline. Music doesn't perfectly match up with years. But yeah, it's literally, you know, the idea. It's just like, oh my God, like, if I'm in love with you, so if you could just be in love with me too, that would be perfect. Like, we'd be perfect for each other. So just like,
fall in love with me.
I think it's only fair. There's gotta be some butterflies somewhere I wanna share. Cause I like you, but that's not enough. So if you will, please fall in love with me.
Absolutely gorgeous. And with those 4 iconic songs, that's the end of this childlike section. And we're ready to move on to an interesting section. This one I just called hyperbolic, but in negative ways. I really like it just because I like slightly edgier music on occasion. It has a little like oomph to it. It has a little edge to it, I think is what I was meant to say there, actually. And these songs are really just expressing emotions in hopefully exaggerated physical ways. You know, just because I don't want any of these people to go to jail, and none of them have yet, so I'm assuming that's exaggerated. I'm assuming that all of these actions are alleged. And just because of how interesting this section is, you're actually going to listen to the song first, and then I'll blurb about it. So first is Body Bag from Chloe Moriando. Go.
Don't know if I hate you or if I wanna date you. Put you in a body bag instead of my bed. I don't wanna like you, I just wanna tie you up and keep you in a cage and watch you sleep for ages.
Now, just from that little section, we get something very interesting. So the narrator is presenting us with the 2 options that they have. They could either choose love or choose hate for like, a very simple breakdown. But this is where it's interesting. If the narrator chooses to love this other person, what's going to happen? They'll date, I guess. Like that's what we can gather from what the narrator is telling us. But what's going to happen if the narrator decides to hate that person? We know exactly what their plan is. Like, pretty detailed plan of what they plan on doing with this person if they decide they're going to hate them. Tie them up, put them in a body bag, literally keep them in a cage and just watch them. Like, those are pretty descriptive for what they're going to do if they hate that person. But we know nothing of what they're going to do if they love them. It's kind of like an afterthought. It's almost like hate is the default here. Next is Checkmate by Conan Gray.
And I'ma get you gone. Can't play me like you're born. Set fire to your lawn, just like you did to my heart. And I'ma wreck your car, and that's your credit card. I love her on the wall. You're gonna wish you never harmed me.
So there's some cheating, there's some mental games going on, and finally the narrator has the upper hand and they're taking advantage of it. They're going all the way. Moving out from murder, we have Diet Coke from Leanna Firestone. Yes, she is here again.
Nothing feels as good as water on an empty stomach. Chewing sugar-free gum to try to curb my hunger. All my friends tell me I'm more than just some stupid number, but nothing will taste as good as being small for summer.
Now, I might find this interesting just as a biochemist, so I'm seeing it from another level. I'm experiencing it on so much of a deeper level than you are. But as a biochemist, I can tell you that there is no connection between aspartame and cancer. It was falsified, there was a story that got blown out of proportion, the studies have been redacted, it is completely untrue. However, if you were growing up at that time, or just like alive in general at the time, you probably know it caused a pretty big panic. And so a girl who is like growing up, she has some type of body issue, she doesn't like how she looks, and like one of the things that she's trying to do on her diet journey, whatever, is she switched to like Diet Coke, because like, oh, it's been told like it's so much better for you. She's presented with information, hey, this could end up killing you. And she doesn't know that this is false. No one really knew at the time. Objectively, that was false. And so she's being presented with, hey, if you keep doing this, it could very likely cause an incurable like disease, an incurable abnormality to happen to you. And she has to make the decision, is it worth it to possibly hurt myself in the long term to be happy in the short term? And spoilers for the song, she ends up deciding that yes it is. I like it because we're not supposed to say that. We're supposed to say like, no, you shouldn't sacrifice yourself now. You have to think about your future. Being pretty isn't everything. You have an amazing personality, all these blah, 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 all these things. But that, being able to say that you have to have perspective. It's hard to say those things when you're in the scenario, when you are the person. That's something that's much easier to say in retrospect, or as someone who isn't dealing with those issues. But right there, right this second, you are the one that has to make the decision. It's about you, it's your life. You probably would say it. In fact, we know that people would say yes because there was such a huge epidemic of diet culture and things like anorexia and bulimia that spurs through this growing internet sensation of diet culture as a whole. Partial delusion, but also like you can see the logic. It's heartbreakingly sad, a little bit horrifying. Speaking of horrifying, we have Dead Girl in the Pool by Girl in Red.
This is the morning after. The house is such a disaster, but there's someone outside that caught my eye. There's a dead girl in the pool. There's a dead girl in the pool. There's a dead girl in the pool. I don't know what to do. I'm the dead girl in the pool.
And it's just so simple. Hungover, anxiety, you don't know where you are. But even more horrifying, everyone else is perfectly fine. You're the only one that's freaking out here. Like you're having this big dramatic reaction like something's wrong, something's terrible, something horrible is happening, but everyone else is perfectly calm. Being anxious about being anxious when no one else is feeling anxious. So why are you feeling anxious? What a perfect way to end this section. Well, we've come to the stream of consciousness section. It's exactly what you would expect from stream of consciousness. It's just them musing about love, life, how they're feeling. Let's start with TED Talk by MX72, where she discusses whether or not she would even want to be in a relationship.
My therapist once asked me if I wanted to be in love, and I told her, I don't know, I guess maybe, kind of? I mean, it doesn't sound like something that I'd really dislike, but then again, I don't even really know what true love feels like.
Not trying to make a decision right now, just simple and casual. And speaking of which, Manta Ray by Chloe Moriando does a very similar thing.
I skip every song that won't remind me of you, cause if it does, it's not worth the time. I wish I had more time with
4 AM by Girl in Red, very simple, just insomnia, prompting wandering thoughts.
Thinking too much again. How my life will end. I have to live tomorrow. I don't wanna live tomorrow.
Okay, this next song is also by Girl in Red. I had to include it. It came off of her first only studio album, If I Can Make It Go Quiet. And it's the last song, and it's just an instrumental. And the title of the song is It Would Feel Like This. So, you know, like you get it. Like you read the title of the album, If I Can Make It Go Quiet, and then It Would Feel Like This. That's so beautiful. Marigolds by Early Eyes, which is a therapy assignment, I guess. They are just feeling lost in life, and they were told to practice gratitude for even the smallest things. And so they're paying attention to the smallest of things.
I can tell it's you by your footsteps in those shoes. Someday I'll find the time to see marigolds bloom.
And then this last one, bitch. And then this last one. You know the words. You're going to sing along. It's the record player song from Daisy the Great. Just go.
I've got a record player that was made in 2014. Dyed my hair blue. It came out a C6 sort of green. I like vintage dresses when they fall just below my knees. I pretend I scraped them, climbing in the...
I can't tell you a single thing that happens in that entire song, and I live. Okay, that's the end of that section. That's the end of that section. This next section is just sincerity. Pure, I probably shouldn't have sent that sincerity. Either expressing how desperate or alone or depressed or just hurt they are by that other person. I'd say that this gives Love's Miss Me song a run for its money, but Love is also in this category as well, so maybe he's just the king of it. First, we have Horny Little Lovesick Mess from Girl in Red. Our narrator has grown distant because they are famous now, and they're on tour, and they're traveling all the time, and it's really straining this situationship.
I'm in the same city as you, but I still don't come through, 'cause I've got so much to do, and that's the shittiest excuse.
Okay, and here we go again. See, okay, I include two songs. I include two songs from Olivia Rodrigo. We have Traitor. They broke up, he got a new girlfriend in like 2 weeks, and she's not over it.
Yeah, you talked to her when we were together, loved you at your worst, but that didn't matter. It took you 2 weeks to go off and date her. Guess you didn't cheat, but you're still a traitor.
Oh, when you look at that, another Leanna Firestone song. This was called Just Attention. It's just realizing that you got played, really.
And fuck the way that he'll go home and he'll play the saint, and you won't ever hear about the girl from out of state. And fuck the way that it ends up being you that I hate instead of him.
And then to close off this section, Sweatpants by Love. Quite literally broken after relationship and not doing well.
Sweatpants and songs about her. Coffee with a little bit of alcohol. Oh no, no, don't judge me, just 'cause I do anything to get by.
Now, I don't know why he's going off about coffee and alcohol, because that is a decision I will always support. And yeah, all of these songs should have stayed in the drafts. And finally, the last section that we were going to talk about today. It's reminiscent, it's introspective, it's hopeful, it's nostalgic. First, 19 by Dylan. It's just looking back at the time that you spent with someone and remembering how young and free and a little bit stupid you were.
Do you remember all the mistakes, disgrace, smiling at the walk of shame, the little lies, big fights, falling back to you and I, our big dreams, white sheets, when you said you only wanted me. Do you remember 19?
Coming of Age by MXM Tune, which is literally, it's just like it's a song that would be played at the end of a coming of age movie. And it's the last song on the album. Just listen to the song, you get the vibe.
Brush my hair in the mirror, maybe I'll dye blue. And the color is dated, but maybe dated is cool. It's the end of an era, I put my fist in the air, and then I look in the camera and tell them, let the credits roll. And the lights come on, and they play that song, saying it's time to let the curtains close. This ain't a coming of age anymore.
This next song, I knew had to be included as soon as I came up with the idea for this video. It was one of like, I think 10 songs I was like, yeah, this one has to be in there. Idle Town by Conan Gray. Just leaving your hometown and kind of realizing that no one else is really going anywhere with their life.
And they watch the sunrise, blinking out of red eyes and sore minds. The airplanes keep flying by and they cry, 'cause I've never even touched the sky.
Okay. Because this is the last section, we had to squeeze in one more. Leanna Firestone, Least Favorite Only Child. We was just realizing that your life can improve, but not without significant work from you. Your life will not naturally improve on its own.
And I know I should be kinder to my body and my mind, and things are gonna get better if I just give myself more time. I've got the rest of my life to feel different than I do.
And as the perfect send-off to the last musical section of this video, we have I Guess That Was Goodbye by Lynn Lapid, which is just taking a second to stop and you look back at your life, you're like, how has so much time passed?
Swear I was just on the pavement, laying down while someone traces me, watching the sky. I thought I had my time, what a lie. I guess that was goodbye.
And yeah, that that was it. So yeah, that video is out of left field to me. I really don't talk about music on this channel. However, I am pivoting more towards talking about just like media in general for at least a couple of videos. I have like 6 or 7 planned out right now that I'm slowly working on. So, you know, for at least like the next couple of months, because these videos obviously take longer. My notes say that I'm supposed to talk about what inspired me to make this video. I was inspired a little bit by our Violating Community Guidelines episode with Brittany and Sarah when they talked about influencer music. And it made me think, like, obviously, influencer music, a lot of them are popular because of TikTok. It made me think, what are some of the good musical, like, artists that we've gotten because of TikTok? I think the main reason that kind of forced me to make this video, though, is Conan Gray released his 2nd studio album. Super Ache is how I thought it was pronounced. I've heard some people say Superachi. I hope they're just kidding. I think Super Ache, I don't know. As he was releasing singles for this album, I really didn't connect with any of them. And then once the album dropped, I listened to the whole album. I think there was like 3 or 4 songs I liked, and the rest I was just like, meh. Which is weird because his core fan base really enjoyed this album. It made me start thinking, why am I not enjoying this album? And getting very personal here, I realized that as he was leading up to Kid Crow dropping singles, and then when Kid Crow came out, I had a crush on one specific person. And there were so many of the songs in that album that related to that person. I felt completely seen. But thankfully, as I grew up and COVID hit the world and I had more important things to worry about, the crush kind of faded, which is good because I do genuinely love this person as a friend, and we still talk like every single day now. Like, he is still to this day one of my closest friends. So I'm glad that like any like feelings I was having that were like kind of childish feelings didn't end up ruining our friendship. But the point is, now that I don't see that specific person in that light anymore, it's hard for me to relate to Conan's music because that was why I related to it. And even the songs I like off of this album, or off of like Super Ache, Superachi, is still like reminiscent, connected to that person. And after I'd spent that much time self-reflecting and self-analyzing why I didn't connect to a certain piece of music as much as I thought I should, it really solidified for me how this genre is so dependent on relatability and raw emotion. If you don't relate to those feelings, it's very hard to enjoy that music. And all that is to say, I made this video because I like music, specifically this genre of music. That is where my notes end. I don't know what I'm supposed to say now, except for the fact that you can follow me everywhere at SirGlenneth, so I'm on TikTok, I'm on Instagram, obviously I'm here on YouTube. Subscribe, turn that bell on, because I don't have a posting schedule, because I'm making bigger videos like this, so they get done when they get done. I have a podcast with one of my friends, Hannah. It's called Hi, How Are You? And I think that's all I need. So let's have some fun and smile, guys, because I think I'm gonna love this era of me on YouTube. I really need to get back into making longer form videos. I feel like it's what I'm best at. I think about things too much, and that is my brand.